So some interesting things just off the bat here. We just closed the 4th as a very bearish candle, and this candle opened up very bearish very quickly, and as we dropped through 6,700, which happened a couple hours ago, we started to see sell volume come in. And as I mentioned in the past, that's not something you want to see. And if you turn bullish off from that, it's not a good sign. So we've been low volume, we dropped through 6,700, we start to see sell volume come in. And while it's not a lot of volume, it's not enough for a panic sell yet, it does anticipate and suggest that if we do drop below certain levels, we are probably going to see a panic sell. So not something you really want to see, but it is something you want to watch. What is volume doing? What is the buyer and seller sentiment? What is the market sentiment right now? So it's possible for this candle to turn around and go bullish. If it does, what does it have to do? So we have our descending wedge, which leans bearish. The reason being, we have 3 points of contact on our support level, which means that the testing support more often than resistance. Now that could change very easily. We could come back up and test resistance. It doesn't mean that we can't go bullish. It just means right now that we are testing support more often than resistance. What could happen is we could break down below this wedge. If we do that, we have basically between 5,800 and 6,000, which is a range where we would need to see a rebound. If we do not see a rebound in that range, we're more likely to see seller volume come in panic mode. So a drop below 58.73 would be a very bad thing. It would definitely encourage panic selling, and depending on how much of a panic we get into, we could very well drop to 4,600. But before 4,600, we have our 5,000 range, so we have to look at what we have in that range first. That's important to look at, but it depends a lot on market sentiment. And the other thing is, I've been noticing some scary things in the news. One of them is that certain exchanges are starting to drop certain tether pairs. Now, in my mind, this is actually a positive thing. Here's the problem. What's behind it? Are the exchanges getting scared for themselves? Are they starting to sense an issue? Is the market preparing for a tether dump, a tether blow up? If we are, and this happens soon, it's going to push the market down considerably. I mean, we're going to really be in a bad spot, and we will remain bearish for a lot longer if that happens. So it's something we have to watch. I check the news daily to see if there's anything new on Tether, because Tether is one of the greatest threats to the Bitcoin price right now. Long term, it's not going to hold Bitcoin down. Short term, it could. Short term, it could devastate Bitcoin. We saw that with Mt. Gox, so it's something you really have to pay attention to. It's not something you want to just, snub your nose at. So a couple of interesting things to pay attention to. So why was 58.73 a low? Is there any significance to that? Well, if you look back in history, you'll find these two interesting candles. You have this candle, which literally the low is 58.50, which is right around that point. It's very close. Previous candle, it had a low of 55, so it's lower, but the actual close was 58.86. So two candles right at that range. All right, so you come back here and you have consolidation throughout that range. So what does that tell us? Well, if you watched any of our previous videos, you'll know that that indicates huge support level, right? So between 55 and 6,000 is a huge support level, and the market treated 5,873, so 5,800 as the point to bounce off from. So as we break down here, what we really want to look for is another point like February 6th, where the market hits a low and we suddenly see buyer confidence, buyer sentiment return, and buyer volume push the price back up. This candle on the 6th should have been bearish. It should have been bearish. We opened at 69.05. We had a low of 58.73. It should have been a bearish candle. Had it been a bearish candle, we would have dropped lower. But the market rejected that 5,800 as a Bitcoin price and we went up. So when we get to today, we want to see a similar phenomenon where we hit a certain level and the market rejects price. And when you start to see that buyer volume just come in power, then you know that buyer sentiment is returning. And if we double bottom at this area with true buyer conviction coming back, I'm talking about true buyer conviction, really the type of conviction that just smashes through resistance, that's going to look really good for a bullish sentiment. It's going to look really good for Bitcoin. And then we can talk about maybe hitting 12, 13, 14, 15,000 again. But right now we need to talk about where we're at. And we're in this small area between 7,000 and 6,000, specifically 63, 6,400. That's where we are. That's what we need to break down out of if we're going lower. If we're going higher, we really need to break above 74, 75, 76. But our wedge right now, it's going to look right around 74, 75. That's the important things to look at. I also want to show you, so this is a chart that I did for TradingView. I drew this on February 26th, so it's quite old. It's over a month old, but it's still very relevant. And if you look at the information here, I just want to show you it because it kind of gives you an idea. True technical analysis doesn't change over time. So true technical analysis, it gives you the options, and then you have to figure out the probability of those options based on market sentiment, based on buyer seller volume, which is market sentiment, but based on, you know, the news plays a part for sure, but that also plays into market sentiment. So you have to understand basically where Bitcoin is at or whatever you're trading and factor that into probability. All right, so we look at where we're at here. This trend line, we had a false breakout, and if you remember, if you've been watching our videos, we called that as a false breakout, and we were laughed at by that. We called two false breakouts for bull traps, and both of them turned out to be. And I believe, based on where we're at right now, we're outside of our bearish channel. This is another bull trap. That is my belief. Now, I could be proven wrong by this turning around, going bullish, and we see market sentiment return for the buyers. If that happens, we have significant resistance now. You'll notice this previous support line, it's a long-term support line, is now acting as resistance, and it has been. You'll notice these candles here, two candles are reacting to it. So we have serious resistance here, we have serious resistance here, we have serious resistance here, and we have resistance points in between, obviously. You know, 8,700 is an important point, 8,000 is an important point, and so all these areas we need to look at if we want to turn bullish. That's why it's so important that we actually drop far enough down where we get a good rebound. There seems to be too many people trying to hype a bullish return. We don't want a bullish return until we get low enough that we get a good rebound. We get a good return of buyer sentiment where the buyers, the bulls, can control the market for a while. If we don't get that, any bullish turn we do is going to be wiped out by the bears, because you need to have power to return. And we haven't had that. That's why we dropped from 11,000, because we weren't ready for that push. The market was not ready for that push. So some levels we talked about, 7,000 on February 26th. Interestingly enough, we did spend a lot of time in that range, but when we came down to the actual trend, the long-term support line, we actually blew right through it. Then we consolidated below it, and we understand why now, because that's at our support level. So this seems to be the last support for Bitcoin to hold. If we don't hold this, it looks like we might be headed for 5,500. Don't have to go back there. We could rebound off from 58, off from 6,000. It's possible. That's why we have to watch the market. We have to watch where this candle closes. But right now, I'm looking at 5,500 or somewhere close to that, maybe 56. But probably more like 5,500 to be the next potential bounce. So maybe you might be asking, well, why 5,500? Well, that's actually a good question. So let's answer that question. So 5,500. Significant support on that level. Now you might say, well, what about up a little farther? So that didn't work. Let's say 5,900. Well, we just established that was support. All right, so that's kind of where we are at right now. We're not down that far, but the way I see it is if we continue, we're probably going to drop pretty fast to that level. So 5,800 or 5,500 would be the point to look at for a rebound. If we get to that point and we start to see buyer volume coming in and pushing us back up in power, then you're going to want to pay attention to that and check if you want to get back into the market. If we get down to that level and you're starting to see panic selling and we're just dropping right through and it doesn't look like we're going to stop at 5,800, then 5,500 might not stop us either. So we need to watch the market as it unfolds. But right now, the most important thing is if we break down below this wedge, that's what we're looking at next. So that's the next movement we're looking at as bearish. If we don't and we go bullish again, if we get bullish candle, we still have room to play around for another day or two in the bullish before we come back and retest bearish. So just some things to look at, some things to watch. So that's about it, guys. Thanks so much for watching. If you have a question, drop the question below, comment below, and ask us. We are more than happy to answer those for you. If there's something in the chart you didn't understand or something you want us to look at, let us know. If you appreciated the video, go ahead and give it a like, and also please share it on social media, on your Twitter, on your Facebook, whatever social media you have. If you have a YouTube channel that is active and you have subscribers and you want to give us a shout out, we do appreciate those things. If you're just a single common person without any followers, any friends in the world, and you just want to drop a comment and let us know how much you appreciate this, our videos, we love reading those comments as well. So whatever you have to share with us, we love hearing it. Last but not least, if you're not subscribed, go ahead and give us that satisfaction of knowing that you're part of the community. We do really value those of you who spend your time watching our videos, because in the long run, it really, the value goes to you. So definitely go ahead and subscribe if you're not, and we will definitely see you in the next video. So take care, guys.